Number 1. Darrell Brooks. Darrell Brooks had been in and out of jail for more than 20 years. By November of 2021, the 39-year-old from Milwaukee had racked up convictions across 3 states. But despite this history, on November 19th, 2021, Brooks walked out of jail after posting just $1,000 in bail. 2 days later, he would drive his red SUV through a Christmas parade, killing 6 people and injuring 62 others. The case that got him released started on November 2nd, 2021, at a BP gas station in Milwaukee. Brooks got into an argument with the mother of his child. When she refused to get into his vehicle, he punched her in the face. Then, as she walked away through the parking lot, he ran her over with his car. Police found her with dried blood on her face, a swollen lip, and tire tracks on her left pants leg. Brooks was arrested and charged with second-degree recklessly endangering safety, a felony, along with domestic abuse charges and bail jumping, because he was already out on $500 bail from a 2020 case where he'd allegedly shot at his nephew. The bail recommendation came from an assistant district attorney who had 2.5 years of experience. She was handling almost 24 felony cases and was in the middle of a jury trial that week. When she reviewed Brooks's file, she saw his previous bail was $500 and decided to double it to $1,000. What she didn't do was check a risk assessment report that had already classified Brooks as high risk. On the afternoon of November 21st, around 4:30, Brooks was involved in another domestic disturbance with his ex-girlfriend near a park in Waukesha. According to her statement, he was driving around with one hand and hitting her in the face with his other hand. She managed to get out of the car and called friends for help. Minutes later, police working the 58th annual Waukesha Christmas Parade heard calls about the fight. Then they saw Brooks's red 2010 Ford Escape SUV heading toward the parade route. Multiple officers tried to stop him. One detective heard a horn honking and watched as people scattered. Officer Buttrin was stationed at crowd control and attempted to redirect the vehicle, but Brooks turned directly onto Main Street and drove into the parade. Another officer banged on the hood of the SUV trying to get him to stop. In the final moments, an officer fired 3 shots at the vehicle, but this didn't stop Brooks. Witnesses described what happened next as something out of a war zone. Brooks drove approximately 7 blocks through downtown Waukesha at speeds between 30 and 40 miles per hour. According to the criminal complaint, he drove in a zigzag pattern, deliberately trying to hit as many people as possible. The vehicle went airborne as it ran over people, like hitting speed bumps, then kept going. In total, Brooks struck 68 people that day. The 6 people killed ranged in age from 8 to 81. 8-year-old Jackson Sparks was marching with his baseball team, the Waukesha Blazers. He was hit along with his 12-year-old brother Tucker. Jackson underwent brain surgery but died 2 days later, on November 23rd. Virginia Sorensen, 79, was the longtime choreographer of the Milwaukee Dancing Grannies. Tamara Durand, 52, Leanna Owen, 71, were also members of the Dancing Grannies. Wilhelm Hospel, 81, was walking alongside his wife, who danced with the group, handing out water bottles. Jane Kulich, 52, was representing Citizens Bank in the parade. 62 others were injured, including at least 16 children who were rushed to the hospital. Less than a mile from the scene, Brooks abandoned the SUV and ran. He knocked on the door of a nearby home, told the resident he was homeless, and waiting for an Uber. The homeowner, unaware of what had just happened, let Brooks inside because it was cold and he was only wearing a short-sleeved shirt with no shoes. When police arrived minutes later, they arrested Brooks without incident. At his first court appearance on November 23rd, prosecutors revealed Brooks' extensive criminal history and the fact that he had an active warrant out of Nevada since 2016 for failing to register as a sex offender. District Attorney Sue Opper asked for $5 million bail, telling the judge there were no words to describe the risk Brooks presented to the community. The judge agreed and set bail at $5 million. Brooks was charged with 5 counts of first-degree intentional homicide. A 6th count was added after Jackson Sparks died. Just days before his trial was set to begin, in October 2022, Brooks fired his public defenders and decided to represent himself. What followed was one of the most bizarre trials in recent memory. Brooks refused to recognize his own name, claimed the court had no jurisdiction over him. On one occasion, he stripped off his shirt and sat bare-chested on the defense table with his back to the camera. Another time, He built a barricade out of legal document boxes and hid behind it. On October 26, 2022, they found Darrell Brooks guilty on all charges, and on November 16, 2022, Judge Jennifer Doro sentenced Darrell Brooks to 6 consecutive life sentences, without the possibility of parole for the homicides. On top of that, she added 762.5 years for the reckless endangerment counts, 6 years for bail jumping, and 9 months for domestic battery. The total came to 6 life sentences plus more than 1,000 years in prison. Number 2. Kirkland Warren. On the morning of March 8, 2023, Kirkland Warren walked out of the Clark County Jail in Vancouver, Washington. He'd just posted a $100,000 bond on charges that included domestic violence, assault, and firing a gun at his ex-girlfriend's apartment. What the court didn't know, or didn't act on, was that Warren was already facing murder charges in another state, and that he'd been free on bail for that case for more than 5 years. 4 days later, his ex-girlfriend Meshe Melendez and her 7-year-old daughter Layla Stewart would be dead. The story actually starts back in Arkansas, 6 years earlier. On November 27, 2017, a 57-year-old man named Curtis Urquhart left a law office in Pine Bluff with Warren, who was 22 at the time. They'd been at a notary's office together. Urquhart was last seen getting into Warren's car. 2 weeks later, on December 11th, 3 men pulled over on a gravel road near Stuttgart to use the restroom. That's when they found Urquhart's body lying in a ditch. He'd been shot in the head, and his left hand had been partially eaten by animals. When investigators brought Warren in for questioning the next day, he admitted to the shooting. He told police that Urquhart kept asking him for money while they were driving, and he claimed he became afraid. Warren said he reached under the driver's seat, pulled out a .22 caliber handgun, and shot Urquhart in the head while the car was moving. Then he drove around until he found that gravel road and dumped the body. Police later found Warren's Google search history from December 2017. He'd searched for how to get blood out of a car seat, how to beat murder, and killing the only witness. Warren was arrested on December 12, 2017. The very next day, a judge set his bond at $250,000. Warren's family put up 10% of that, $25,000, and he walked out of custody. He was formally charged with first-degree murder and abuse of a corpse in February 2018, and the same bond amount held. Arkansas law requires that anyone charged with a crime other than capital murder be given the opportunity to post bond. Warren's bond was meant to ensure he'd show up for trial. Instead, he moved to Washington State, and his lawyers and prosecutors knew about it. The case dragged on for years. At one point, Warren's attorney's 91-year-old mother broke her hip, causing another postponement. By early 2023, more than 5 years after the charges were filed, Warren still hadn't gone to trial. But despite being married, Warren was also in an on and off relationship with another woman named Meshe Melendez. The exact nature of their relationship is unclear, but what is certain is that by late 2022, things between Warren and Melendez had turned violent. In 2020, Vancouver police investigated Warren for possession of a stolen gun. In 2021, they looked into him for lying on a federal firearms form, claiming he wasn't under indictment when he actually was. In March 2021, Warren tried to buy a 9mm handgun at a store in Camas, Washington. He checked the box, saying he wasn't facing any felony charges. His application was denied. On December 13th, 2022, Warren and Melendez got into an argument at her apartment in the Minnehaha area of Vancouver. He left, then came back and fired a gunshot at her balcony window while she was looking outside. 10 days later, on December 23rd, she finally called 911 to report the assault and the shooting. A friend who'd been there during the incident backed up her story when police interviewed her in early February 2023. Then, on February 17th, Melendez met with investigators again. This time, she took it all back. She said she'd lied about the shooting, claimed she and her friend both had mental health and substance abuse problems, and asked police to assure her that Warren wouldn't be arrested. But by that point, the evidence was already there. On March 2nd, 2023, Vancouver police arrested Warren on multiple charges: second-degree domestic violence, assault, drive-by shooting, making a false statement, harassment, and possession of a stolen firearm. The charges stemmed from the December incidents with Melendez. Warren appeared in court the next day, March 3rd. Prosecutors told the judge that a danger assessment had found Warren posed an extreme risk to Melendez. The assessment gave him a score of 31 on a scale that normally goes from 1 to 18. Prosecutors also pointed out that Warren had an active homicide case in Arkansas. They asked for a $100,000 bail. The judge agreed and also issued a no-contact order, meaning Warren was legally prohibited from contacting Melendez. Less than 2 hours later, Warren called Melendez twice from the jail. He told her she was responsible for his arrest and that she needed to get the charges dropped. Melendez, in those recorded calls, said she was trying to make it go away. Warren told her he wasn't going back to Arkansas. Despite this clear violation of the no-contact order, Warren posted the $100,000 bond and walked out of custody on March 8, 2023. Here's where the system failed catastrophically. A Vancouver police sergeant had asked the court to require Warren to wear a GPS ankle monitor if he was released. Washington State had recently passed a law allowing judges to order electronic monitoring for people accused of domestic violence. The monitor would have let Melendez know if Warren came near her. But when Warren's case got shuffled between district and superior court, he was never fitted with the device. He walked out of jail with no way for anyone to track his movements. Meanwhile, back in Arkansas, Deputy Prosecutor Simber Tadlock was trying to revoke Warren's bond in the murder case. She'd been notified on March 2nd that Warren had been arrested in Washington, but under Arkansas law, she needed official paperwork showing he'd committed a felony before a judge could revoke his bail. It took until March 14th for her to get the necessary documents from Clark County. Judge William Wright revoked Warren's Arkansas bond on March 17th. But by then, Warren had already been out of the Washington jail for more than a week. On the evening of March 11th, Melendez and Layla went to a friend's apartment. About 20 minutes after they arrived, Warren showed up at the apartment. He and Melendez got into an argument, and for the rest of the night, they kept leaving together and coming back. Sometime before 6 in the morning on March 12th, Warren shot Melendez in the head with a .22 caliber handgun. He left her body in the front passenger seat of his Dodge Charger, put clothes over her head, and went to a house party. A few hours later, he used Melendez's phone to text her friend, saying he was coming to pick up Layla. Warren arrived at the friend's apartment around 9:30 that morning. The friend was babysitting Layla. When Warren pulled up, he had loud music playing. The friend reached into the car to turn down the volume and saw Melendez slumped in the passenger seat, naked from the waist down. She assumed Melendez was passed out, maybe drunk or high. Warren yelled at her to close the door. The friend handed Layla and her kitten to Warren, and he drove away. What Warren did next was nothing short of a monstrous, disgusting act. He sexually assaulted the 7-year-old girl, then shot her twice in the head with the same gun he'd used on her mother. The next day, March 13th, he drove to a remote area east of Washougal, a small town outside Vancouver, and dumped both bodies down an embankment off Wooding Road. Melendez's mother reported her and Layla missing on March 18th. She told police she hadn't heard from them in a week, and they'd missed their regular video chat. By that point, Warren was already back in custody. Police had arrested him on March 19th on new charges: tampering with a witness, violating the no-contact order, and illegal possession of a firearm. When they searched his Dodge Charger, they found blood in both the front and back seats, .22 caliber shell casings, and children's clothing that matched what Layla had been wearing. On March 21st, prosecutors asked the judge to increase Warren's bail from $100,000 to $1 million and to require GPS monitoring. This time, the judge agreed. Warren's Arkansas bail had also been revoked by then, so even if he somehow posted the $1 million, he'd still be held as a fugitive. The next morning, March 22nd, a man walking his dog near Washougal called 911. He'd seen what looked like 2 life-sized mannequins lying in thick brush down an embankment. When deputies from the Clark County Sheriff's Office arrived, they found the bodies of Michelle Melendez and Layla Stewart. Both had been shot in the head. Melendez had a single gunshot wound to her left temple. Layla had been shot twice. Both were partially naked. Warren was charged with 2 counts of aggravated first-degree murder and first-degree child. He pleaded not guilty in April 2023. His trial was set for September 9th, 2024, and prosecutors said they planned to call 77 witnesses. Then, on September 5th, 2024, just days before the trial was supposed to start, Warren changed his plea. He admitted to second-degree murder in Michelle Melendez's death and aggravated first-degree murder in Layla Stewart's death. He also agreed to plead guilty to the Arkansas charges: first-degree murder and abuse of a corpse for killing Curtis Urquhart. Arkansas agreed not to seek the death penalty. At his sentencing on October 8, 2024, Warren sat through the hearing without speaking. He stared straight ahead and showed no emotion. Judge David Gregerson told him the courtroom hung heavy with the suffering of the victims' families. Then he sentenced Warren to life in prison without the possibility of parole. There's another piece to this story that raises even more questions. Warren's wife, Monet Tyler Warren, worked at a credit union in Portland. In November 2022, just weeks before Warren shot at Melendez's apartment, surveillance cameras caught Melendez opening an account at that credit union. She was seen getting out of Monet's car. Later that same month, $20,000 was transferred from a customer's account into Melendez's new account using Monet's employee credentials. When police questioned Monet, she admitted she'd been changing customer account information so Warren could steal money. She said she'd altered somewhere between 5 and 10 accounts. In total, she stole around $25,000. Monet pleaded guilty to theft and identity theft charges in February 2024 and was sentenced to 2 years probation. Number 3. Travis Lang. Around 11:30 on the night of October 1st, 2021, Indianapolis police got a call about shots fired on East 11th Street on the city's Near East Side. When officers arrived at the 2900 block, they found a black Ford Fusion riddled with bullet holes. Inside, 24-year-old Dylan McGinnis was slumped in the passenger seat, shot multiple times. He was dead. The driver, a woman, had been shot in the leg but was still alive. 9 shell casings from a 9mm handgun were scattered around the scene. Detectives quickly learned what happened. The woman had arranged to meet someone to buy drugs. Dylan McGinnis wasn't there for the deal. According to his mother, he'd gone along to protect his friend, who struggled with substance abuse. He was just trying to keep her safe. The person they met was Travis Lang, a 23-year-old known drug dealer in the area. During the transaction, the woman and Lang got into an argument over the price, whether she'd pay $60 or $80. The argument escalated. She told Lang to get out of the car and punched him in the face. Lang stepped out, pulled a gun, and demanded money. Then he opened fire, shooting 9 rounds into the vehicle. McGinnis, sitting in the passenger seat, was killed instantly. The woman was hit in the leg. The whole thing was over $20. What made the case even more disturbing was that Travis Lang shouldn't have been on the streets. He'd been arrested back in December of 2020 on cocaine possession charges. At the time, he also had 3 other felony cases pending against him. His criminal record went back to 2018 and included auto theft, multiple drug offenses, and resisting arrest. But on January 10th, 2021, a charitable bail organization called The Bail Project posted $5,500 in bail for him. Lang walked out of Marion County Jail with all 4 felony cases still hanging over his head. Over the next 9 months, he kept dealing drugs. In July, he was arrested on another charge. A relative posted $150 bail, but Lang didn't show up to court. A warrant was issued, and it stayed active right up until the night he killed Dylan McGinnis. Police used GPS data, surveillance footage, and social media to track Lang down. On October 18th, 2021, they arrested him. McGinnis's death became Indianapolis's 200th homicide of the year, putting 2021 on pace to be the deadliest in the city's history. Dylan had been a good kid. He'd graduated from Westfield High School in 2016 and was planning to take over his father's electrical contracting company. His family said he was always helping people, moving furniture, fixing cars, whatever anyone needed. On the night he died, the woman's phone had been recording. You can hear Dylan on the audio apologizing and trying to calm the situation down. It didn't matter. Lang shot him anyway. The trial took place in August of 2023. Over 4 days, the jury heard from witnesses and saw the evidence. On August 17th, they found Travis Lang guilty on all charges: murder, felony murder, attempted murder, 2 counts of robbery resulting in serious bodily injury, and carrying a handgun without a license. On September 27th, 2023, he was sentenced to 96 years in prison. Dylan McGinnis's parents filed a wrongful death lawsuit against both Lang and the Bail Project, arguing the organization should have known better than to bail out someone with that kind of record. At the time of his release, the Bail Project said Lang had no history of violence, which was technically true. But he had a long pattern of criminal behavior, multiple pending felonies, and had already failed to show up to court once before. Number 4. Nyan Sanders. Nyan Sanders was 19 years old when he committed his second murder. Back in 2022, when he was still a juvenile, Sanders and his brother Kevin had been charged with killing a man named D'Angelo Wallace in Mobile, Alabama. Despite facing murder and robbery charges, a judge set Sanders' bail at $200,000 and allowed him to stay out of jail under house arrest. The condition was that he had to wear an electronic ankle monitor so authorities could track his movements. That monitoring was handled by a private company called AcuPoint. On the night of November 11th, 2024, around 9:20, Mobile police got a call about a shooting at the Dauphin Gate Apartments on Dauphin Street. When officers arrived, they found 25-year-old Joseph Evans Jr., known to his family and friends as Baby Joe, dead outside between two buildings. He'd been shot. A second man had also been hit by gunfire but managed to get himself to a hospital. His injuries weren't life-threatening. Investigators quickly learned that the person responsible was Nyan Sanders, the same teenager who was already out on bond for the 2022 murder. What made it worse was how he'd done it. Earlier that evening, sometime after 5 o'clock, Sanders had let the battery on his ankle monitor die. The monitoring company's system was set up in a way that wouldn't alert anyone until 8 o'clock the next morning. That gave Sanders about 15 hours to move around undetected. Within just 4 hours of the monitor going dead, he'd left his approved residence, traveled to the Dauphin Gate Apartments, an area he wasn't supposed to be in, and allegedly shot 2 people. Mobile County District Attorney Keith Blackwood called it an absolute worst-case scenario, the kind of thing everyone in the community dreads. Sanders shouldn't have been anywhere near that apartment complex, and according to prosecutors, he deliberately allowed his ankle monitor to die. His brother Kevin was with him that night, which violated Kevin's own bond conditions. Kevin wasn't charged in the November murder, but court documents showed the 2 brothers had been together during both the 2022 killing and this one. On November 13th, 2 days after the shooting, police executed a search warrant in the area of Bankhead Street and Euclid Avenue and arrested Nyan Sanders. He was booked into the Mobile County Metro Jail just after 10:30 that morning on charges of murder and first-degree robbery. His $200,000 bond from the 2022 case was revoked, and a judge denied him bond for the new charges. Kevin Sanders was also taken back into custody for violating the terms of his release. The whole situation exposed serious problems with the private ankle monitoring system. AcuPoint, the company responsible for tracking Sanders, had already been under fire just a month earlier. In October, they'd failed to report that another murder defendant had violated his bond by going to a casino in Mississippi and a shoe store without permission. Nyan Sanders is currently being held without bond in the Mobile County Metro Jail. He's awaiting trial for the murder of Joseph Evans Jr., and he still faces charges for the 2022 killing of D'Angelo Wallace. Number 5. Julian Ingram. On the afternoon of January 22, 2026, police in Lake Cargiligo, New South Wales, got a call about shots fired on Bocara Street. Officers arrived to find a dark hatchback with shattered windows. Inside were 25-year-old Sophie Quinn and 32-year-old John Harris. Both had been shot multiple times and were dead at the scene. Minutes later, another call came from Walker Street, just a 2-minute drive away. At a home there, police found 50-year-old Nerida Quinn, Sophie's aunt, also shot to death. A 19-year-old man had been shot as well but survived and made it to a hospital. Lake Cargiligo is a small town of 1,100 people in western New South Wales, and this kind of violence had never happened there before. By the next day, police identified their suspect as 37-year-old Julian Ingram, a local council worker. What made it worse was that Ingram had been out on bail for domestic violence charges at the time of the shootings. Back in November of 2025, Ingram had been charged with multiple domestic violence offenses. Police granted him bail, and when the case went to court 3 days later, they didn't oppose it. The reasoning was that Ingram had a long criminal history, including domestic violence, but he hadn't committed a violent crime in 5 years. A risk assessment deemed him low risk. On December 3rd, 2025, a magistrate confirmed the bail and issued a restraining order to protect Sophie Quinn, who was Ingram's ex-partner and was pregnant. Under the bail conditions, Ingram had to report to the Lake Cargelago police station every day. Police checked on him multiple times, and he complied with every condition. On the morning of January 22nd, security cameras captured him at the police station doing his daily check-in, wearing his high-visibility council work gear. Hours later, he allegedly shot 4 people. After the shootings, Ingram fled in a white Ford Ranger marked with council logos. He worked as a gardener for the local council, which meant he knew the area extremely well. Police launched a massive manhunt with over 100 officers, tactical units, helicopters, drones, and even Australian Defence Force personnel. The search covered vast rural properties, some bigger than 160 square kilometers, in extreme heat exceeding 45 degrees Celsius. Investigators believe Ingram may be getting help from people in the area, accessing food and water to survive in the bush. More than 2 weeks later, he's still at large. In early February, New South Wales police launched a critical incident investigation to review their own actions, specifically why Ingram was granted bail despite his history, and how he was able to access a firearm when he'd never held a gun license. The investigation is examining the full domestic violence history between Ingram and Sophie Quinn and is being overseen independently. Julian Ingram remains a fugitive, wanted for 3 murders. Police have made it clear they'll keep searching until they find him. These are cases that could have been prevented if the bail system had properly assessed the real danger these men posed. If you want to see more in-depth true crime investigations like this, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. Until next time.